I'm here. I don't know if anybody can see me. I can't hear you though.
We're muted. How about now?
Okay, I can hear.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. With a roll call, Angie DeSantos,
I'm here.
John Kopic,
Here.
Paul Borga,
Here.
Jesse Burnham,
Here.
Garth said no show, Christina Davis,
Here.
and Hugh McKenzie. Okay, so we have 4 regular. Christina, I'm gonna set you for guard.
Okay.
Communications. Other than what I've sent you guys from the school, that's all I have, so I don't know if anybody else has communications or anybody want to share anything out there, communications? Okay, I'll move on. Public comments. Does anybody want to make a comment? Hello,
Hey, how are you?
good, how are you? What's your
I'm
name?
good. Oh, Rick Quatlin.
Okay.
All right, I'm good to go. Being a business owner, I know how much effort goes into budgets and associated items. On that front, I wanted to thank all involved in this process, whether this board, the Board of Education, or otherwise. While having been raised in the adjoining town of Mansfield or Stores, when I first went to Smith, I met so many great classmates from Ashford that became friends. From that, I viewed Ashford as a place I would love to live in and have been proud to call it home since the early 2000s. Every year, my wife will hear me discuss items that affect us all, perhaps some more on a state and national level, but not exempt from also being at the town level. While some may be more corporate related, this also takes form at every level that affects our collective cost of living. My coworkers know I refer to this area as a slice of heaven, and when they visit, their first words are "now I see why." That said, while I'm entirely cognizant that our taxes, mill rate, and all these factors are influenced many line items we'll be reviewing, or you'll be reviewing, I want to focus on one item in particular. Tonight, the Board of Ed is presenting its budget. In no uncertain terms, am I very aware of how other towns view their educational costs and prioritization of it within the budget. Simply put, while no one, including myself, is a big fan of having taxes raised or mill rates, I think one needs to be open-minded and not come into this process with any preconceived or thoughts as to the budget without having spent time on reviewing the details, listening clearly, and understanding why things are outlined as they are. Please go into this process with an open mind and desire to understand the whys behind the asks. To put it bluntly, having my kids go through the school and in one case continue to do so reaffirms to me how Ashford School is a blessing for those in this community and continue to produce great kids that I hope to see join others at EO and elsewhere that can take their next step being properly prepared in education to find their new friends and adventures as I did. If it's true that public comment is only afforded prior to the presentation being made, my ask to this board is that if any questions come up during the presentation, that you afford the opportunity for those that represent the budget to speak to those questions, or either the Cindy or other qualified people to do so. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you. Okay, anybody else? We'll move on to the number 5, the approval of the minutes for Thursday, February 16th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move. Angie.
Thank you, Angie.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item.
I'm gonna abstain, record.
Oh, that's right, you weren't here. Sorry. Anybody else? I don't. The motion passes with 5 and one abstain. New business, selectmen. Just in time. Yes, this is the selectmen's update.
Just a quick update. I know that the meeting for technical reasons didn't happen last week, but frankly, we weren't prepared either. We've had shortage of help and some time and IT issues. We request that we could make our presentation to you either next week. I know it's not on your schedule, or on the 13th. So if your board can consider that, let me know. I'd appreciate it. Just a couple of things for updates. The fuel tank replacement at the school is on schedule. I mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago. We did get confirmation that delivery is scheduled for the 3rd week in June this week, and it looks like everything is going as planned. The school roof update. I had discussions this week with Jim Rupert, chairman of the building committee, and he's going to be calling a meeting this week. One of the things that we have to identify at this point is if we're going to need any money in advance of the bonds actually being sold. The bond resolution that was passed at town meeting does incorporate and allow us to do some temporary financing. I've had discussions both with bond counsel and our finance director, or advisor rather. And there's a couple of methods that we could do that. We could do an early temporary bonding situation. We could go to a private financing source like our bank. And the third thing would be to finance it through our undesignated fund balance, which would be the least expensive. I've talked to bond counsel about that option. I've also talked briefly with our auditors about that. And that would be a bookkeeping procedure that would be feasible for us to consider, and it wouldn't cost us anything. The building committee is going to be meeting because what we need is kind of a figure. If we were going to go into temporary bonds and we were going to need like $1 million, that would be a good idea. In talking with Jim Rupert, we're probably talking somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000. And that would be to cover architectural for drawings for the roof, all the engineering, whatever mechanicals have to be done. He's going to confirm that with us. So that's the amount that we're looking at. Haven't discussed this with my board yet. Probably my recommendation would be that we try to do it internally if we can. I think it's the most economic way to do it. Also the most expeditious way to do it. I also mentioned a couple of weeks ago, thanks to Dina's due diligence, we've been monitoring the market. We've locked in prices on our diesel fuel. Last year, we had locked in at $3.68. We locked in this past week at $3.03 a gallon. Our heating oil last year was at $3.56. We locked in this year at $2.92. And we've also locked in, although we didn't have competitive bidding last year on it, but our gasoline prices, because we put in a new tank up at the transfer station, is locked in at $2.80. So those are all good figures. Just a note, and we'll discuss this when we make the Board of Selectmen presentation. As you know, last year we recommended holding $50,000 in contingency, not knowing the way the market was going with our oil costs, and that we have not had to dip into that. And we'll be recommending this year that we don't include that in our budget. Any questions or anything?
Ask a question, real quick. Shall locked in fuel and oil prices, are those for 1 year?
1 year.
1 year, so
For the period of July first through June 30th,
read my
the
mind.
prices he quoted are the prices per gallon, not including taxes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Judy gets to decide.
Yes.
So, for the funding for the roof, like who decides that? Does that have to come to the Board of Finance to decide that? Do we have to approve spending it from the undesignated fund balance? Or do we have to approve temporary bonding or bank loans?
I believe the Board of Selectmen, in working with the superintendent, has the authority to do that. But that would certainly be something that we would coordinate, to let the Board of Finance know what we're doing. I'd rather do this as partners than, you know, piecemeal. Any other questions? Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Bill. Okay. All right, Cindy, we welcome you to the floor. Ashford School Budget presents. Okay, Jane, sorry.
So good evening, Jane Urban, Chair of the Board of Education. Thank you to the Board of Finance for the opportunity to present the Board of Education's budget this evening. It's the Board of Education's responsibility to provide a budget that aligns with our vision and our goals. The Board of Ed's vision, recently revised in December, is to support Ashford School in providing high-quality educational opportunities that empower learners to strive for positive change and in fostering an environment in which creativity, critical thinking, cultural competency, and innovative problem solving are central to learning. Our budget proposal reflects our goal to develop and monitor a budget that ensures the best possible education while being fiscally responsible to taxpayers. Developing a budget is a delicate process. Our submittal to the Board of Finance is the result of a collaborative process that started in November and included input from school staff and teachers, the administrative team, the school community, and the Board of Education. This budget reflects the needs of our diverse student body and supports our mission to provide a safe and positive environment that encourages lifelong learning and empowers students to succeed in their continued educational endeavors. The child of today is very different than the child that entered our classrooms 5 years ago, never mind when we were young. It is not only about the materials or the programs, it's also about the important relationships that are built with adults in the building, relationships that ensure our kids have an environment in which they can succeed. I'd like to highlight 3 key elements of our budget proposal before we answer any questions from the Board of Finance. The first is the departure of our prior superintendent created an opportunity for Ashford School to innovate by having the acting superintendent responsibilities taken on by the Director of Pupil Personnel. This required reallocating responsibilities among administrators and other staff, but the Board of Education felt that Ms. Ford was the right person to take on the challenge of balancing these critical roles. In December, the board agreed that our experiment was a success, and so we are moving forward with this continued approach, which is not only proving to be highly effective, but also results in significant cost savings on our administrative staff line. The second item is that since submitting our budget proposal to the Board of Finance, as Bill mentioned, our business manager was able to lock in rates for our fuel, oil, and diesel. The confirmed rates for next year are approximately $32,000 less than our original estimate, which means the Board of Education's request to the Board of Finance is now a decrease to a 3.61% increase rather than a 4.16% increase that was originally submitted. Finally, the Board of Education identified 2 critical staffing needs and included funding to support those staff in our budget proposal. The first is for a reading interventionist for the middle school. One of the elements that the administrative team highlighted during these discussions is the fact that if you can't read, you can't succeed in science, you can't succeed in math. It's critical to every element of learning. So the board supported adding a full-time reading interventionist for our middle school students. The second is for a part-time school psychologist. A school psychologist is necessary for the completion of certain evaluations. It's not a position we can do without. And currently, we are having these services performed through a contracted service. So the addition of this part-time position is actually offset by a slight reduction in our costs under contracted services. Thank you again for your consideration of our budget proposal. We look forward to answering any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you. Okay. How would you guys like to proceed? Do you want to go through the presentation or? You want the board to just ask questions?
Whatever is best for you guys. We're comfortable with whatever. Dina and Cindy are ready.
All right, how do you guys want to proceed? You want to just ask questions? And I mean, I know we submitted a bunch of them and they did respond to all of them that we've asked. But here's a chance for additional.
Yeah. Sydney, do you have a presentation prepared at all, or?
I was asked to just provide what, a written document,
Okay.
so that is what you have, yeah. We weren't asked to do like any, if we were gonna do a slide, it would be like one page, and it's just too much information.
I have follow-up questions based on the responses that we got. So I could ask a few things, if that's okay. So I have on the question and answers that you provided yesterday. So question number 2 talks about the different prices of MacBooks and Chromebooks and iPads. But I'm a little confused. So who's getting iPads is my question.
Yeah, if you read that paragraph, it says that we would start the iPads in grade 5.
Oh, okay, I just
And
wanted to make sure.
Currently, the school has for quite a few years, done one-to-one.
Mhm.
So the one-to-one program is the way it's always been discussed. And in the past, it was MacBooks. Which, as you can see, are, is a significant increase in price from the iPads. So I know that last year there was discussion about Chromebooks going between possibly doing Chromebooks rather than iPads, and you can see the pricing is very similar. The Chromebooks are actually a little bit more expensive due to the security, iPads, Apple is known for their security. So the teachers can actually live watch exactly what all students are doing on their iPads while they're walking around the classroom.
I guess what I got confused about, because there was discussion last year about Chromebooks for like K-4 or 1-4, I don't remember exactly, but we're not talking about that here. It's still just starting 5th grade 1-to-1. That's not changing.
Just to fund that one-to-one program. There is talk about, I did we surveyed the staff to see what their comfort levels. They currently have desktops in their classrooms for students to use with some iPads. There are a couple of iPad carts or 2 iPad carts that can get signed out. Some of that equipment is starting to age out. So trying to decide, do we continue with buying desktops, or do we, have less desktops? Obviously, we would continue, not obviously, but we would continue in the media center. So in our library currently, we have a computer lab in there. We would continue to have that as a lab with desktops for classroom teachers to bring their students down so that they can do group activities on the computer. What we were thinking about is possibly moving from desktops in the classrooms for the elementary levels to the iPads. So nowhere are we thinking that each kid will have an iPad. It's just replacing the desktops with possibly using iPads rather than that.
And on those keyboards that's mentioned to go with the iPads, is that gonna be like a full-size keyboard, Bluetooth on the side, or more so like the case where the case opens up?
The case opens up.
Okay, so I just know myself, I've got one of those at work, and you try to type on it, and it's very difficult to type on versus a traditional keyboard.
They have lower hands.
Yeah, I know. but I just wonder like how that is, like learning process of learning to type at the younger grades.
Actually, learning to type on a regular keyboard is actually very difficult for kids because of their small hands. So they can't spread across. So it actually might help with
Okay.
that situation.
With regard to the iPads and Apple devices in general, everybody knows they're good at their 3 to 5 year plan, and then they're basically a doorstop. I know because I have to use it. So what going forward would be the plan to replace those items as they age out? Because they're no longer supported by Apple. Would it be an every 3 year thing that we have this thing, or are we gonna continue to see it in the budget? Like, we're gonna have a line item so that we have whatever that amount may be, to keep adding those devices.
Yeah.
And Chromebooks have the same problem.
Right.
Because they break too. It's not this unique to Apple.
No.
Apple's just really good at it. But more so than the Chromebook devices.
I'll start and then I'll let Cindy fill in. There's no way we're gonna avoid technology expenses every year. For your point, things age out, they can't be updated anymore, things break, technology changes. So we're always gonna have a budget for new technology, there's no way around it. But the school has done a fantastic job of keeping things alive as long as possible. I know that we have computers that we were using previously that had kind of reached past where they could be updated, but there were still other uses that you could do without those updates. So the school is very focused on not just going out and buying new stuff to have the newest technology. We buy new things to replace what needs to be replaced. And Cindy, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Well, our current, I know that, Deanna, you can help me if I speak. I don't have enough information about it, but I know that Savage System, you know, our contract, that is one of the things that they're gonna help us with, is getting a full, complete list of exactly what and keeping track of that, you know, the devices, so that we can, you know, properly age out and keep track of that. So we know that X device has aged out.
Just want to add one thing if I can. We also have looked at some special financing packages that Apple Education has. These financing packages have 0% interest for starters, which is good. But what the advantage of the financing packages is that it guarantees money for old devices back. They're based on 3 grades, so we're guaranteed to be able to give them back for certain dollar amounts to help offset the years that are coming. So that will help after we get through the initial outlay.
Can I ask a question on the Savage Systems thing? So we have a you have a shared contract with the town.
Correct.
And then, so what is the total cost of that contract and what is the split? Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40?
It's actually broken into 2 contracts. The school has their own and the town has their own, but because we got them together, we got
You got like a
negotiating discounts.
Yeah. So what is the school's contract with Savage Systems? Is that in a line item or?
Yeah. It would be.
And again, that replaced like a person that we have.
It's for the school, it's $79,500.
$79,500.
Correct. Which is approximately a $40,000 savings over having a full-time tech director per
Okay,
year.
okay, good to know. I have more
Oh,
questions. I can
No,
keep going.
don't look at me. I'm trying to, I have made notes on my thing here and I'm trying to go through them to see, I don't want to ask the same question twice, so.
So one of my questions is on the head count, it is in this document, historical staffing numbers, 65 for the current school year. So what would that number be under this budget proposal for 23-24? Would it be 66.5? Is that correct? Is that right? If you're adding a person and a half?
So if you look at total. I'm missing a page on that. Sorry.
I might have it electronically.
So it doesn't give you a total, but the intervention and special teachers, one, we can see that at the bottom, teachers goes from 10 to 11.
Yeah. so
And then
that's
on the
one.
next page, special education support, it goes from 9 to 9.45. So that's, those are the only things we're proposing. Yeah.
So on that page though, the math doesn't work for me. On 23-24 total teachers, for intervention and specialist teachers,
Right. It doesn't-
it's not right.
It's not.
So is it 11 or is it 10?
Well, so in 2022, 2023, it's 10.
Yep.
And then we're proposing the addition of a reading specialist. So that would be an intervention. And that's where secondary intervention is.
Right.
The second line is a 1 and then it's a 2.
Yep.
So then that would be 11 for next year with the addition of that one person.
But if you add up that column, it's 12.
It's
So
because
is it the Spanish? So the Spanish is a 0.
Yeah,
And it should
Okay.
be a 0.
That's what I thought.
yeah.
So that's just a mistake.
So 11 is the correct number at the bottom.
Okay.
Sorry. Now, it seems like it doesn't.
I couldn't reconcile it.
So middle school Spanish is really a 0.
Yes. Middle school Spanish is a 0. Yeah. So again, if I'm doing the math correctly, if last year or this current school year, we have 65 total staff at the school. Sorry, total instructional staff. If you add 1.45, you get 66.45. So is that correct?
Yeah, correct, that's correct.
Are you still going, Christina?
No, I'm gonna let somebody else talk.
Okay. Good idea. Okay.
Go ahead.
The proposed full implementation of free breakfast and lunch, and you explained it as they basically pass an executive or the governor signed an executive order. But as we know, they don't have a budget yet. Did you do anything in this budget to cover that? Does that not come to fruition through the state?
At the time the emergency order was signed, our budget was already done and approved by the Board of Ed,
Okay.
therefore there is none.
There is none.
We still have an operating surplus from last year, although we will need to use some of it this year. We will continue to have a surplus to carry over to the next year to help.
Well, this, I mean, so let me, just to be clear, I'm not blaming you, I'm just
No, no.
asking, this is a mandate from the state. No, I just want everybody else to know that I'm asking because I want people to understand that you come back and say, well, hey, the governor did this and we need to do this. It's not something you did or we did, it's something they did in Marshall. So, okay, so right now, that is not included in this one. There's no, okay.
But as of right now, that's technically an unfunded mandate,
That is
right?
Yes.
So if it doesn't get funded by the state, but it's a mandate, how much is that gonna sink us? Because
Yeah. Our operating expenses for our cafeteria run about $25,000 a month, depending on how many meal days there is in a month. We currently receive reimbursement from the federal government for everyone who applies for free or reduced lunches. That depends, again, it all depends on the number of meals served, but that provides between 12 to 13,000 per month in revenue. So you're looking at another 12 to 13 per month for 10 months that isn't funded as an average,
So about 120,000.
right? Between 120, 125.
And again, so the hope is that the state would cover that,
Is correct.
but there is always the chance that they might not.
Correct.
Do you know if it's? Because I haven't followed it closely, but I know some, like, have they prioritized, like, we're gonna cover it for certain districts that meet certain criteria and
You're
not
not
others?
part of the National School Lunch Program. If you're not part of that program, then you're not getting any funding. Schools that are community eligible provision, they are not getting not even a penny, yet they have to provide free universal breakfast and lunch, so they're in rough shape. Luckily, we are part of the National School Lunch Program.
That's why we get the federal.
That is
funding.
correct.
But the state, the current state, the governor's budget, not the legislature, the governor's budget did not, while he included the mandate, to John's point, he did not include funding.
That is
Yeah,
correct.
like I said, I'm just pointing it out so people in the room understand that. You have to come back and say we need 120,000, we can go to send letters.
what is our free and reduced percentage at this point?
Right now, we're at about 30%.
Okay.
But in a shameless plug for parents out there to fill out the applications every summer before the school year starts. Because it makes a world of difference for us and the money that we do receive.
What's the percentage for, it becomes 100% at above, what, 40% or 50%?
I believe it's 40, around 3%, around
Yeah.
40.
Okay, yeah, sort of pretty far flat stuff.
Right, but once you hit that mark, you join the community eligibility program, which gets new funding, so. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I had several questions about medical and dental benefits and retirement benefits to both staff and support staff. So just to kind of review my question, and kind of read the answer real quick again. It seems like the increases that we're seeing, especially on the medical side and retirement, seem a little larger than I would expect. I have the privilege of doing a budget myself, so what's driving that? Is it because we weren't able to switch carriers? Is it just the insurance company haven't given you
Our claims history in our combined group of the town and the school is exceptionally high.
Okay.
And that's why, that's what your premium increases are driven by. So as long as we continue to have high claims, we're not gonna see any relief from this line. I know there was talk about joining the partnership program to save money. Is there increases this coming year is going to be between 8 and 10%. Well, there's also a broker fee on top of that for starters. Secondly, the monthly premiums for the state partnership program are higher than the premiums we're currently paying to United. So yes, the increase is smaller, but the baseline is higher. So it doesn't necessarily make sense for us to make the move. Plus, once you make the move to the state, you're committed for 3 years, regardless of what increase the state does. And if you break that contract, you have to repay the claims money that they've put out for you. So
It's a balancing act,
It
like you
is.
said, the high claims drive it up. I understand the state is a bigger pool, so we get lower increase, but the higher premium, which doesn't
correct.
really do it any good.
Right, and the decision was an agreement with the town and the school last year to not move the state plan. Both the town and the school agreed that it didn't make
It
sense.
doesn't sound like it. It just seems like it was really high, but I understand insurance all too well.
And we're watching the claims monthly, and the claims they come in on the 15th of the month. The ones that came in on February 15th were worse than expected, worse than what they were the month before. So we're not going to see any relief at this point.
Is there I don't know how to say it, ask the question. I don't want to seem out of touch or mean, but is it something that's like safety related at the school, or is it just?
It's important to note that it's just not the school, that it's also town employees that
Right.
have high claims as well. So it's a pool.
Yeah.
I can't see who has what, so I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah, and it doesn't explain the claim either, does it, to you? It just
No.
tells you there's a claim.
It just gives us the dollar
I
amount.
guess in my other life here, I'm just thinking, we could do, is there something we can do to reduce the claim so that we can? Most workplaces you go in the building, there's a big sign on the wall, how many days since an accident. I know.
But, United Healthcare offers several programs that are free to their members. They offer a weight loss program. It's called Rally Health. With trainers, and they give you supplies and all kinds of tools. They offer a Peloton program. They don't give you the bike, but you get the app for free. They have smoking cessation. And they have all kinds of other tips on their website, the heart disease, cholesterol, and so forth.
Most of the larger companies, and does it too, and as an aside, as an employee of a large company who tends to change their carriers, like yearly or bi-yearly, it is a pain when that happens, so.
We attempted to look at other carriers last year, and our claims were at a level that we could not get anybody to quote.
And then can I just move on to the retirement? It's 7% for the paras, is that correct? So this, the Board of Education puts 7% in regardless of what the employee contributes. Is that accurate? Okay, so there's not a match, it's a flat 7%. And that's a contracted, or I'm sorry, negotiated. Okay. And the teachers remain with the state program, correct? I just have one more. And that was in 1,000 lines. It looked like it could be the new software where there's several lines of like previous years where there were numbers and then there are zeros. Is that just because of I can't think of the old one and the new one now, but with the new software, I know that we've been having trouble even the Board of Ed, reading the information. Was that just caused by that? Like, we didn't just dump lines and take it here, we just moved them.
It was the
somewhere.
decision of the prior superintendent to combine the lines.
Okay.
I had a question going back to the reading interventionist. Was there a reading interventionist in the middle school a few years ago? So just a decision to change that, or?
There
Right.
was one,
For about last.
4 months. last
yeah,
year.
there was one last year, but then I think you're referring to years back. Or are you referring?
Or
to
just
last year?
why the shakeup, why the change, and then, bringing it back now?
Yeah, I can't really speak to last year, but I can speak to in the past. We did have a reading interventionist. And again, it was just the decision to move away from that. And I believe we had a writing interventionist. It was a position that moved into the library media specialist position. And then it went part-time, due to, growing family and things like that. So it morphed
Okay,
as they kind of changed the position. So it just moved around, but it was doing some of the intervention. And so currently what we have in that role is a para that assists with the reading
okay.
up in the older grades.
As I recall, last year, there was discussion on the math, a math specialist or something. Was that, the score got better, we don't.
No, it's there.
What is that?
That's there. Yep.
I'll say that, my experience as a parent, the addition of that math interventionist has been fantastic for two of my kids who are actually on the end of needing to be challenged more instead of needing a little bit extra help. Because our math interventionist works with kids on all ranges. So he's available to help the kids who need extra
Right.
support as well as the kids who need extra challenge.
Curiosity question, which math program are we using?
Math program that we use.
I love you, math.
Well, excuse me, what did you say?
Illustrious math.
Illustrious math?
I am.
It's. You just right, I am.
I am.
I am, but it's illustrious with no M. I
Math.
am, oh, math,
Yeah.
oh, okay, all right,
It's okay. It's okay.
all right. I'll look it up on the internet. Could I ask a question? I mean, this is really beyond, but I was wondering, my brother was talking to a relative in Virginia with an 8th grade student who did not know how to multiply herself. Maybe 4 numbers multiplied by 3 numbers. Do you teach that in your school? How to multiply on your own without using a machine?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
See, I see you guys have a PMT training. Is that new for the de-escalation training
CPI.
for all staff?
It's a mandate.
Is it with the Title I paid through that
It's
or?
an unfunded mandate. We use the company CPI, but it's called de-escalation training. It's just. There's different companies out there. PMT is one of them.
How many languages do you guys have?
We have two. Right now, we have German and Arabic. Yeah, Arabic is through outside TCLP, which is a program that we get a teacher through that program, and this year was from Egypt and last year was from Egypt. And German teacher was as our world language teacher. It's a shortage area for world language.
No Spanish?
Our Spanish teacher left at the end of last year, and we were unable to find another Spanish teacher. So the decision was made to hire a teacher of a different language, and German was the best candidate we found. So that
I find
was,
it unusual, because like the dynamics of you run into more Spanish people than you do
Mhm.
German.
yes, we had advertised for a Spanish teacher and were unable to fill the position. So ended up advertising for a world language teacher and finding an excellent candidate who happened to be a German teacher.
Does a language teacher have to be certified as a educator?
Is the hope that the Arabic teacher will be grant funded again next year, so that, right, is it covered by a grant?
Yes, it is funded by a grant.
Okay, and so this town is eligible for that, or the.
Yes.
the district is eligible
We
again.
are already in the process of applying for that again.
I think that worked out great. My kids love German. They're, I think exposure to multiple different, instead of trying to build up the single one through elementary, middle school, I think they're having a much better time getting a little bit of all these different ones. It's really been positive in my household. I took all German when I was in school. And of course, I've had no one to talk to, so I've watched it all. And now I'm like, oh God, it sounds familiar.
We do have a German teacher for most of the year.
Yeah, yep.
And you could host a.
Yeah, an intern. We have a
I
German intern that
Yeah.
also comes from Germany.
There are 6 of us in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. Yeah.
What's enough? What's just one more question? Does anybody know what languages are taught at EO now or offered at EO now?
So Spanish, French, German, Latin.
Wow, they still offer that.
Yeah, I tried to trauma my son into taking it.
And last year was Chinese.
Okay, yes.
So have students coming from Ashford had, I don't know if Mansfield middle grades offer, like when I went there, I took Spanish.
Mansfield's world language program, we can't compete with.
Right. Well,
It starts at a very young age, continues all through.
let's be honest, the demographics of Mansfield and the demographics of Ashford are two entirely different.
They are, as a person that thinks, I wish I went to a very small elementary school and had no world language until I went to high school, and then it was a Catholic one, so I got Latin.
Right.
So I, always wish I'd been exposed to languages much earlier. I think there's lots of research on the benefits of that. As to John's point, regardless of what the language is, that type of exposure is valuable. So I wish we had, we used to have 2 Spanish teachers. We used to have Spanish for more grades. We used to have, I wish we could get all that back, but our budget just couldn't support any further expansion. If you followed the Board of Ed's discussion, that was something I fought mightily for and lost. Data beat me in the end, but I had requested that we add a Spanish teacher back to staff.
Follow-up question on the generator.
Yeah.
I see in only like a couple $100 increase in the budget, 19,800, I think it was, for repairs and maintenance. Is that looking like that can repair it, or is that a capital request this year?
No, actually, good news is we are going to be getting, the insurance is going to cover.
Okay,
So I sent that to, Bill Bloody, the information that we got from the insurance, which was great
Okay.
news.
so that is,
Is it a repair or replacement?
I was just gonna ask. if
It's a
Wait,
replacement.
I was gonna
It's
say,
a replacement for the exact same.
okay,
The town can decide, because we got a quote for both. We got one for the same size or one a little bit bigger. But the wiring and things like that are for the same size.
Right.
okay.
And if the town were to pursue the larger generator, the cost difference would be on the town to cover, obviously, the difference in the price of the two.
it is good news to hear that.
Yes,
Yeah.
they covered it. It was excellent. They're being, it's great. Because even the rental is being covered.
Okay.
Nice.
Curriculum. Would you guys like to share any improvements on curriculum for the coming year?
Sure. So there is a state mandate out there to improve your reading curriculum for grades K through 3. Many districts are looking to waive that for a year. We still have funding through our ESSER funds. So we have decided to move forward and to get the curriculum, the reading program. It's not the curriculum. So the reading program, and so there are 6 to 8 programs that are approved by the state of what school districts are allowed to purchase. So we will be purchasing, we're piloting currently different programs, and then we will be looking to purchase something for the upcoming school year. We're also piloting this year grades 4 through 6. And that also is the plan to go through the ESSER funds. ESSER funding can be used for anything that is to improve instruction or to that recovery of COVID. So new programs would meet that requirement. So that is, we're seeing that as an opportunity to use those funds towards improving some of our curriculum, our programming. We are.
Yeah.
Yes, and we're also doing science, remembering which grades?
We are looking for programming in grades 6 through 8, but our K to 4 will also be receiving enhancements that they need for the programs that they have. So we are going to put that all together and move that forward as well.
And that money is in our current budget.
Of the
That's in the
ESSER
Board of
budget?
Education. That's not in the ESSER, that's in the Board of Education budget.
And this past year was the math.
And this past year, we purchased the math through funds that were left over from last year. So at the end of last year, we purchased our math program. And that was implemented K through 8. So. Teachers are busy.
That was sorely needed, though. It's
Yes.
been
Agreed.
a rough curriculum pathway for many years.
Yes,
That's what I was gonna say, there was
Yeah.
nothing for it,
Yep.
but
Yeah,
now
I know,
we're finally
I know.
getting there.
yes, we are definitely working to improve,
You combine that with the extra interventionists, and I think that's
right?
huge.
Yeah, and earlier, at the end of last year, we actually had, teacher
teachers come and do curriculum presentations to the Board of Education. We had math staff come and talk to us about how incredible the new math program that was implemented was, and how beneficial it was to all instruction in the school. So yeah, we're already hearing the benefits of it, and I guess we're not seeing it per se, but hearing it from the teachers.
Is that replacing Common Core math?
No, so the curriculum, to Cindy's point, we always mess it up and call it curriculum, I do it all the time. The curriculum hasn't changed, it's the programs that help you state, kind of phase it and what to teach when. The program kind of lays out a plan for you a little bit. So
To meet that curriculum.
Right. Curriculum hasn't actually changed, so the requirements for what we need to teach in math haven't changed. But now we have a program that helps map it out a little better, right? So to John's point, you know, the path, he said the path wasn't, you know, it lays out that path to get to those curriculum goals.
And the reading is all based off of science of reading. So there was a huge research project in the state of Connecticut that took place in past years. And that's where all of the approved programs came from.
It was, what again?
It's called the science of reading.
Science of reading.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been quite controversial on the Board of Ed circuit. The fact that there are so few programs that are state approved and that there's no state support for the need to get a new program. So that is why the state came out with this waiver process. But to Cindy's point, our ESSER funds expire at the end of the 2024 school year, right?
No, September, they have to be expended by September 2024.
Okay. So while we have the ESSER funds, it's a great way to make those investments that we would need to make. You know, another unfunded mandate in the state, we would need to make those investments anyway. So we're using the ESSER funds to do that.
Thank you.
Just for K through 3, it's steep. It's, you know, you're talking $100,000. So with all the materials and the training and you get up there.
Does the funding for the kindergarten, I think there was some type of funding last year for pre-star or something like that. Does that help with that too,
The
or?
readiness funding,
Yes,
not for the programming, or the readiness funds.
Readiness fund staffing and some of the benefits of the staffing, parent activities, parent field trips, supplies, necessary equipment to support the 3 to 5 program. Thanks.
You got
thank
it.
you.
She has like a computer. So she got
In there.
Yes, I kind of lied to you. I told you that was at the table. So you don't have to juggle.
And again, just to loop back to the bottom line, the request is now 3.61% because of the decrease in the fuel costs. Is that right?
And
Yes.
find further down.
No, that's right. Yeah, 3.61.
I love it. Yes, you can deduct about $32,000 from the fuel, oil, diesel. Categories.
I'm sorry, I was definitely sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I said deduct about 32,000 from the fuel, oil, gas category.
Incorrect. It brings the total increase, that we're seeking to $315,856.
More than last year.
Yes. Yes, not the total.
Yeah. I'm just doing the math. So that brings the total to $8,653,283. Is that right?
8,653,283 is correct. Ding, ding, ding.
So of those total staffing numbers, just as a note, just as a side note, just, looking at our grants, just, note that those are part of that total number. So the Board of Ed does not fund every single one of those or full salaries. Some of it is offset through grants. All of these grants are subtracted from the bottom line.
So when these grants run out, then the teachers will be going on to the regular
Teachers
funding.
are funded by entitlement grants, which are automatically renewed every year. Your readiness is, as long as you maintain your program, you get that every year.
Okay, so they
Title
never come
I,
off the grant.
IDEA, correct.
Because I was gonna ask the next question, are we looking at the future and how are we plotting out our future of increases for, next couple of years, next 5 years?
It is a main reason why we chose never to fund staffing through our ESSER funds. And that is one of the reasons why last year it was decided to not continue to fund the reading interventionists, because that was supposed to come through ESSER funding. It's
It's reliable, yeah.
right, and staff, one of the first questions that when we did interviews last year was, is this funded through the grant? Because, why would a teacher want to leave a job and come to a position that it very well could be let go at the end of the grant, because these are not renewable.
Not only that, we're then on the hook for unemployment.
Correct.
So in addition to not, losing a staff member, we then have the expense of unemployment, if we can't continue paying for someone through a grant. So, yeah, we don't do that.
I saw the updated sign in front of the school on Facebook post today.
Right.
Are we in the same situation as the surrounding towns for finding substitute teachers? Or are we paying just a little less than other towns, or are we pretty much on the same pay per day as surrounding towns for substitutes?
Not this year, but last year, we significantly raised many of our substitute positions, the pay for those, to make us more competitive. Because there aren't a lot of people around that are interested in doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, the people just, there's personal reasons why they're not doing it.
Not everybody who applies to be a substitute is cut out to be a substitute.
Well, no, not even that, it's just.
I think that
But we are in need of subs, yes.
that issue is, the manpower issue is
Right.
not just schools, it's everywhere.
No, and I'll say, something we recently discussed at the Board of Ed meeting is almost every other town around us have days where they've either canceled school or not been able to get kids to school because of their busing. So we're very fortunate that we have our bus drivers on staff.
because we have not, and part of it, I'm sure, is a lot of hard work from our transportation coordinator and other folks, but we have not had that situation, where other school districts have found themselves not being able to bring kids to school, and canceling school as a result. And we've been very fortunate that that has not been the case in Ashford.
We got enough.
You're the one that talks the most.
I did a lot,
So just saying that.
did a lot of reading and when you sent those, Cindy and I had a conversation about something else, and I told her in an email last night that they answered their questions really thoroughly, so.
See, I was nice to you guys.
it's,
It worked.
I appreciate it. It helps when you get the questions ahead of time.
It's kind of like cheating though, I bet the teachers.
I have to say,
Just saying.
and I hope it's obvious to all of you, Cindy and Dina and Holly and everyone have put a lot of work into this budget and a lot of effort, and they've done, I think, just an incredible job. We've had some rocky years in the past, and it, even from the Board of Ed's earliest days of looking at this budget, it's just been a much better process, much more transparent, much easier to follow, and I really appreciate all the work they've done to get here. David, I didn't mean to leave you out. I can sign.
Anything else?
Can I just say I reserve the right to ask more questions later in the process, not to have later. Come in court.
You expect nothing less.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the process? Because like, do they come back again, or is this it? As in terms of their presentation to the Board of Finance?
So their presentations tonight, and we'll give probably a week to think about what we are thinking of what we want to do. With the information we got and any additional information. And in that period of time, if you have questions, then forward them over to them, and we'll work on that, and we'll meet again next week, and we'll talk about what we're gonna do as a team. I do have a question though, or something that maybe the Board of Ed might consider in the future. I mean, last year was kind of hard to do this because we really didn't have the support at the general budget for getting information right away on, where we were at, or, how much was spent or expenditures. Well, we didn't have any idea anyway. In our guide for the Connecticut Board of Finance, but it has a section that says for teachers' contracts, it mandates that 30 days prior to the date of which the Board of Education is to commence negotiation with teacher representatives, the Board of Ed must meet with the board. Now, we were involved in the process of the contracts. A couple of us had attended. I don't have an issue with that, but I was thinking maybe the next part of this might make it smoother. I don't know how you guys come up with your budget if you don't know like where the town's at. So if, we're like a whole community and there's a bunch of pieces. So how do we come up with a really good budget in all departments if we're not connected? And that's where this one says the Board of Finance under the section has the right to have a member of the Board of Finance present during negotiations, which we did.
Mhm.
But they also said that the two boards. Also, the statute does not state for what reason. It is implied that the two boards would discuss the financial situation of the town and the effects on various levels of contract settlements. So as long as I've been on the board there, I have never been involved in any discussion about the connecting of the parts. And I think it would go much smoother if we had the connection of the parts.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. You know, the Board of Finance and the town did receive a notice that we were entering negotiations. We're legally required to do that, so we did that. In the going forward, when we do that, I think it makes it sound like, I don't know if it's on the Board of Ed to set up that meeting, once we notify you, or if it's on the Board of Finance to contact us and say, hey, let's meet to talk about it. I do think, in theory, it sounds really good. In practice, you know, our attorney led the negotiations, with the goal of getting the best contract for the Board of Education and for the town. And her data were from other settlements, from what was happening in the state, from, you know, what she had access to. I don't know. I guess I'm not sure how the financial situation of the town feeds into that, in a way that, the Board of Ed is never gonna offer more than we feel like we have to have a contract that the Ashford Education Association will agree to. I think you were present, I know you and John took turns, but I think you were present when our attorney went through the financial repercussions of if we had to go to mediation on a teacher contract. And, so I think that the Board of Ed really relies on our attorney to get us the best contract that will avoid mediation and the expenses of that. And I think it would be helpful, obviously, to have a discussion about the town's finances and the town's, you know, how it all fits together. I agree. I think in theory, it might be a little challenging since some of that is, dependent on what's happening in statewide in teacher contracts, a little bit more than what's happening specifically in our town, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand all the, you know,
Yeah,
the regulations and the negotiations and, you know, all the hoopla that goes behind all that process. And I do commend you guys. You did an awesome job from what I saw. But I was just looking at, you know, even for a conversation, to have the groups together discussing the status of
right.
Each individual area. So that there's an understanding, a clear understanding when we go through this process of where we're at.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
all.
No, I agree. I agree.
Anybody else have any questions?
Hearing you talk about the attorney just made me think of, I remember last year's budget, and I'm just quickly looking at it, I can't find it, but there was like a big increase in like legal fees last year.
Yeah, so
Where does that fit into this year?
So
Couldn't find
we,
it.
yeah, we bump up the legal fees because the attorney leads the negotiations with the teachers on the teacher's contract. So if we know we have a negotiation year, there's a spike in the legal fees. So last year was the year we renegotiated the teacher's contract. It's a 3-year contract. So you shouldn't see another big bump in the legal fees for 3 years, although I think we do have one contract this year. That's the MEUI, which is
So that's
the
your
non-certified staff.
non-certified staff.
And so, Dina can tell you more specifically what impact that has on our budget this year in legal fees.
Or what page is that on, or what?
If you're looking at this document, Forgiven, if you go to page 8, it's in the first grouping. You see the legal expenses, special ed legal expenses, regular ed.
Okay,
We've kept it the same because we are once again negotiating a large labor contract.
So there's no increase, it's just the same. as last year.
Correct. Correct. It's about $20,000 to negotiate a contract. And that's one that goes smoothly and doesn't hit arbitration.
As you know, Judy, the process this year was, because of the year that we're in, inflation has been high. And other contracts have been high. Our teachers didn't come at us asking for, just in our Wyndham County, it was like 14.9 while we were negotiating was what closing contracts were. And so, I just want to note that it's not only the hard work of the board, but our teachers are very aware of the community and the constraints. So they didn't come in highballing at all. So it was a very respectful, back and forth.
Yeah, I agree. And our attorney actually commented on that in the process, how impressed she was by our union and what they were requesting and how reasonable they were in a year when they could have asked for a lot more. And the union did acknowledge in our discussions that, so many of them are community members and they know. And so it was, Cindy's point, a very positive exchange.
Just the state average was 11.99%. So that's
And we were what,
11.5. Yep. Over 3 years. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
1 year. For each year.
The school psychologist. Being that that's part-time, the chances of actually filling that as a part-time position. How does that look?
It looks better.
Mhm.
One of the things that I'm hoping is that it's maybe somebody that might be staying home. Because it's really our focus will be testing. And some, services, but because we have a full-time social worker, 2 of them, they can fulfill those IEP obligations as of like the services, the counseling services. So what we're really looking for is to bring down the costs of, every 3 years, you have to reevaluate. And there's certain testing that only a school psychologist can do or a psychologist. So, and it's significant cost when you have to go outside. So that's the thought, is the hope is that maybe it'll be somebody that, maybe even left the field that isn't looking to do, all of the services and, but would be willing to do the testing and go to the IEP meetings and to, write the reports.
So versus what we do now, it would actually be a cost savings in certain years, not in the grand scheme.
It could be overall. I think we have in the budget.
It depends on where they land on the salary schedule.
That's true.
So if they're, step 2, that's great. If they're step 13, then it needs understandings. We estimate middle of the road when we do the budget.
Right, and a school psychologist has to be, it'll be, 60-year masters plus 30.
Mhm.
So it is, it's a highly qualified position.
But at 0.45, there's no benefits with it then, right?
There is.
There is, okay,
It's prorated.
gotcha, okay.
But it's a custodian subs. You had them and now this year you don't have them.
We haven't been able to fill the substitute custodian position. We've just been, haven't done. We've had to pay overtime in order to get things done when there's been custodians out. That's why there's no money in the budget for a sub custodian.
How many do you guys have again?
Yeah, but
I don't.
We're not 5 full-time, not 5.
no, because Gina's 3 as a 0.7.
0.7, so.
4.7.
Right, 0.7, 7.25.
She has to leave her left foot and her left right arm outside.
But for a building that's approximately 84,000 square feet, it takes that many. We couldn't do it less.
Right.
Any more questions, guys?
I have one more. When would we know about the funding for the cafeteria? The lunches,
When the governor's budget
when
is
that
approved.
budget gets approved, which could be June.
Yeah.
You had to put a price tag on unfunded mandates. How much in this budget pays for unfunded mandates? Ballpark.
Oh, I was gonna say park.
Are we in the hundreds of thousands? Are we in the millions?
I think it was last year, that Tammy Nucci actually asked us that question. And I think we generated a document, I don't know where it is now, but, about the number of things that were unfunded mandates that were in our budget.
John, I don't know if you looked, it's on page 1. It's on the bottom, unfunded, partially funded, it doesn't give the dollar.
Right,
amount,
right.
but
Yeah,
it lists all of them,
yeah.
and I bet there's actually more that are hidden in things that we don't think
Oh, yeah.
about.
There are still some in committee that,
Well, that's a whole nother mess. but,
Yeah.
I'm talking about even right now, like, you talk about the programs, the math programs, right? And then not only are they mandated and unfunded, but then they restricted what you could purchase, so that ties against what.
Yeah, the annual reporting requirements are one line on here, and I know that's that's a big one. If you have the number somewhere and you happen to come across it,
Yeah.
pass that along.
I don't, now that I'm thinking about it, we may have just done a list, not a number.
right,
Well, maybe we don't have that.
I've never done it in any other districts because there's so many, so
Yeah, we're talking more than a teacher or two, I would bet.
the reading program alone is.
Right,
Yeah,
Right.
right,
Right.
yep.
Even the excess cost. So Ashford is doing well, we, what is it, 91%.
But special education,
That's-
excess cost.
Right.
So it's above and beyond what you spend on one student,
Mhm.
above your per pupil expenditure. So in some towns, because they just redistributed that number, sometimes towns, they're losing a significant amount of money in that. And that's huge. I mean, and that not only is it not, it's not funded through the state, that's not but federally funded. So one of the legislators was on, and it's like something like they only fund 40% of what they're supposed to be funding.
Yeah. Yeah, when you say
Federally.
91%, you mean that they're supposed to cover 100, but they're willing to give you 90.
Yes,
Right,
correct.
right.
So,
Yeah.
excuse me. So the 91% is, could you explain that again, what that is?
So we do, an excess cost is above whatever a per pupil expenditure is. So if each student gets a number, I don't even know what it's actually. I can't think of the per pupil, but it's above that. And so it's 91%. So if a student costs over,
If the student costs over that percent, that excess is called the excess cost. And that's the part that the state covers. The state doesn't cover the cost up to that point.
right,
It's the extra cost that the state will cover 91% of.
So if it costs $20,000 for a regular student, and this is a made-up number,
Okay,
but it costs $40,000 for a child who needs extra support, they'll cover 91% of the 20,000.
they'll cover 91% of the extra cost
Correct.
of an unnormal child.
Well, a child that needs extra support,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, they got a crazy formula. So ECS grant equals base aid, supplement aid, regional bonus and density supplement.
Yeah, and it's different for every town.
So I'm getting a different percentage increase. So last year's total was 8,337,427.
The total budget.
37, 427.
Yeah, and then this year with the bump down from fuel, the total you're asking for is 8,653,283. So the percent increase I'm getting with that is 3.79%.
Yeah, we put the 32,000 right in the software. It came to 3.61. You saw me do it.
I know.
I'm thinking 3.79, so I would just double check. And let Judy know if it's not 3.65.
Sure.
Because that we tend to get fixated on that percent number, and if it's not right, then we'll get all messed up.
It's a good point.
So can the lunch program be covered with the ECS grant too? Or no?
You're
Not
talking, that's a
education.
special ed excess cost grant, so that's, no, the cafeteria cannot be covered by that.
It's educational, correct?
We had two grants though for the government, general government.
Yeah, but they're
ECS
both,
almost.
I think they're both earmarked as, both of the ECS grants are educational and not anything other than that. basically.
Yes.
That's, I don't know how to define it any other way, but you gotta be teaching them something. You're just
Right.
teaching them how to eat isn't.
Not feeding them.
There we go, you gotta teach them not to.
Yeah, I think I'm getting confused. There's two.
So. It should count. Yeah. I'm coming up with 3.63 on my phone. The software is programmed to round to the nearest whole dollar, so that could be the difference between the 3.6 and
To me, the percentage means nothing, it's the actual, I'll be honest, it's the dollar, right? The actual dollar value, the number. Because the percentage is, we're talking about such a large number anyway, when you, in perspective to other departments, so yeah.
Okay, so it's up for now.
Maybe. Let's get them move on.
Huh?
Say we move on.
Okay.
Let them go home. They gotta go to work. Watch it.
All right, so we'll think about, the process, the information, any more questions we have, and if we have questions, go forward. And then by next week, we'll sit down and hopefully we'll have the town, budget also when. Oh, actually, next week we have to,
Next week is,
next week we'll schedule a film.
okay, we can still discuss it. I mean,
We
we
can still
actually,
discuss it.
that's the next item on the agenda, right, is discussion, so.
Oh.
9 more pages.
You don't have to write the discussion down, Valerie. You honestly don't.
You really only have to write down the motions,
Yeah, You don't have
technically,
to write. You don't have to write that.
but you do an awesome job.
I'll write the discussion down. You'll be here all night trying to translate what.
What I've written down.
Yeah. All right, so we'll let you guys. And then we'll move on to our next,
I would like to say again, thank you and thanks for answering the questions neatly and in layman's terms, how's that?
Yeah, hopefully that worked out better for you guys, not so stressful.
Very helpful. The numbers don't lie, the numbers are the numbers. That's.
You know, when I mean all the questions, usually there's like, there you have 5, 6 people bombarding you with all kinds of stuff that you have to pull out of your head. Thank you, guys.
Wow.
I don't know where to go. My dog.
It's right here.
I'm here for my team.
Okay.
I don't have to work tomorrow, so I don't have that experience.
No.
Not gonna be a snow day, you know, right?
No,
No.
that's not supposed to snow until.
It'll be snow day Saturday, which, sorry.
Yeah, it's a robotics tournament.
I know.
I'm curious.
On Saturday?
On
Yeah,
Saturday,
I'm afraid
yeah.
they're gonna cancel it.
Yeah,
Walking
yeah,
far away.
Yeah.
Again.
They do say it's supposed to end by morning, I thought.
yeah, but
That's-
schools
that's
are
what I
priorities
heard.
to get plowed on the Saturday morning.
Yeah, right.
So I don't like, at this point in time, I don't think that there's much to discuss about the budget.
We
You
don't-
know,
we don't have
unless
any of
we
the rest
have
of the
other
picture yet.
questions. Yeah, that's what I'm
So-
saying. We need the rest of it.
I don't disagree at all. But I don't know, I have a general statement, I guess, about the budget for now. I like the idea of being able to give them the Board of Ed questions ahead of time. The only thing that I think that it took away from was it didn't give them, Jan and Cindy, the opportunity to explain things ahead of time. So I think some of the questions probably would have been answered if they would have just been able to come in and say, here's our budget, this is why this line item is this is why, and it doesn't have to be fancy and all that, but that's all I would, that's just an observation on my part. I think,
With a presentation
yeah, with
instead.
even like 10 minutes, or maybe even 3 minutes, but just because I know that for me, I went through it and looked at the things that were important to me, but I think that some of those items would have been touched on as they went through a brief presentation. And even in the packet, some of them were talked about, but then I wanted additional clarification on these things. The good thing
I
was.
forwarded the presentation,
You
right?
did, yeah.
Okay.
But, the good thing was by asking some of the questions, and that's what I was getting to with the answers, was those answers actually not only cleared up or answered some of the questions, but they generated some other maybe thoughts about things that we didn't think about. I didn't think about when I asked that question. So it carried it a little bit further, but I just think it would have been nice to give them the opportunity to like at least say, here's the budget, this is why we did it, that's just my thought.
And you guys think which way you like it? You want questions ahead or you want the
So
presentation?
I'm not saying not give them questions ahead, I'm just saying I would still like to be able to give them the opportunity to do a brief presentation.
Right, so.
Oh,
our-
that's fine.
Yeah, and I was under the impression when we met as the two boards that we needed to keep it very brief. So that's why it was a short 2-page document,
Yeah,
highlighting just the overview, here's the numbers. I do know that in the past, there has been like, all the increased line items and a little explanation that,
it doesn't even have to be that detailed, I guess, just what, for me, like, especially, for instance, my questions about benefits and retirement, and then specifically benefits, because that was a big number that jumped up. I can't imagine that, and only because I know I have to prepare it for myself, that you wouldn't have said, the benefits line increased because of X, Y, and Z, and in this case, it's because of claims, whatever it may be. But that way, I don't have to ask that question, or even if I did ask the question, you answered it, but then you can explain it so everybody understands, and I don't have to. That's just my thought process, and I just think it's easier to have and it also, it gives you folks the opportunity to explain to this board your thought process, and not just in the negotiations, but how you came about in the budget, to Judy's point about getting together as a group and discussing the town's finances. This kind of is that opportunity in a way, right? It just happens to be a negotiation here. Negotiations were on pre-budget. Well, last year, we didn't all sit in the same room, so it made it difficult. But we could have had that discussion. Hey, we know you're going into negotiations. Here's where we're at. Things are kind of tough, you know, and kudos to the union for not coming at you with a big thing, because that could have got messy.
I see your point this fall. I think my preference, and I don't know if I'll be chair again next year. We have an election between now and then, but would be to do 4 or 5 PowerPoint slides that highlight the budget items that we think are most critical or big changes.
Yeah,
Or
and again, it
something,
doesn't have
something
to-
very simple.
even just like this, you know, 4 pages.
Right.
Yeah, just here's the highlights.
Mhm.
This is why we did it. This is what we.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were kind of like, when we were talking about the format, I kind of got a little thrown off because we always had the same format, so I couldn't understand why people were asking me why we wanted to change it or we wanted something different. So we, and I believe John was with me with the format, but then we put it out to the rest of the group of what they'd like to see, and we didn't get any feedback, so
Well,
it kind of was what it was.
Yeah, I kind of think too, like that, I think we all probably thought that it was just gonna be what it always was, right? So it wasn't a lot of conversation, and we haven't started having in-person meetings until the middle of January, so that whole discussion took place over Zoom and via email, which makes it difficult as well.
Yep. And in the past, I know that there was a full presentation that would be developed, but we weren't able to, the Board of Ed wasn't able to show it. So
Right.
it's also just,
And-
you
and
know,
you know
coming
what?
at it.
I don't.
Why do you feel like you weren't able to show it? Just out of curiosity.
I think it was felt that it wasn't about, it's about the money and it's not about all of, you know, the pictures and things like that were added to
I gave you
slideshows.
that impression.
But we will have
Yeah,
that
we
It
were
was actually, it was actual feedback.
Right, we were specifically told that our presentation seemed to have been developed for parents, and that the Board of Finance had a different focus, and that it wasn't appropriate to give that kind of presentation at the Board of
That
Finance.
was, I
That's
know
who
exactly what
said
you're talking
that.
about, and I know it, I'm not gonna.
It wasn't any of us though, right?
No, it's just before this board.
Because I kind of.
But it was also an entirely different administration
Yes.
in that building, so.
Yeah.
And I was one of the people on that side of the table that made that, well, I'll admit, I was one of the people that made that comment. Not to that, I said something else, but the same idea, that there was too much fluff and not enough
Stuff.
information.
Yes. And I, you know, like Ina said, numbers are numbers, they don't.
Right, well, and
And-
so, exactly, the numbers don't lie, and if you try to put stuff in there, everybody in the room goes. What do we do?
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I might have said a comment about like with the printing, because like if you print out this huge document and there's like 5-6 pages of photographs, then I know how expensive color copies are.
Yeah.
And how expensive copy paper is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, well,
am not I am
Less.
less
Yeah.
rather than more. I feel like stay with the facts and that's
But I
it.
feel like if we had like the projector going and you were,
Right.
Yeah,
then show all the
paper.
pictures you want, but like.
Right.
Make the packet, like, you know,
No, I get it.
The number at the end at the bottom of the page was still the same number, right?
Well,
Yes.
Or save the pictures for the community presentation.
Right.
There you go.
When you're convincing
Yeah, right.
people to
Right.
get out and vote for.
Right.
There you go.
And
Our
stuff-
budget book will be very, very,
Different.
yes.
And again, this past year at Bill's suggestion, we had a meeting between the two boards to
Right.
talk about that. And so next year, maybe we'll have a different conclusion of what the expectation is, and we're happy to.
Oh, I'm not,
Um,
don't misunderstand my statement. I'm
No,
not-
no.
I think it actually went very well. I thought that we should, I think there was just a misunderstanding.
I agree that, I agree. So I'm not.
Yeah, I think what in the past, they came with the document, a written document and a presentation. I just came with the written document and figured I'd answer what I can, and what we can't answer, we will answer in the future. Because going back and forth, sometimes being put on the spot, sometimes can be
A
hard.
little difficult.
Yeah,
And when you have so many different line items and numbers. and-
you spend the time flipping through the pages.
Yep. Exactly.
My wife just texted me the governor approved to give schools more money. I go, what money are they talking about? Let's go, I believe the governor approved to give the schools more money. And then, good, that's good.
They're gonna give us 50% more towards a new 100% plus thing that
Yeah,
I
exactly.
require.
Okay. So you guys want to move on and talk about anything we have from the budget from the town,
Do we have anything from the town yet?
do the school? Well, I sent you a little bit of what I had. I have the expenditures, but
Right, yeah.
as far as I know,
I don't know if you saw, Judy, I emailed you questions about the expenditure report.
yeah, I didn't forward those yet because we didn't get anything yet.
Right, well, they're specific to the expenditure report, and like in particular, I'm concerned because the Parks and Rec fund is missing again. I think youth services is missing. There's one other thing.
Yeah, the Parks and Rec went over budget too.
Either way, we need to have all the budgets in the budget.
Well, hold on, though. Is Parks and Rec. Or youth services is a town sort of, but it's is Parks and Rec. A town,
They have them as separate.
They should, they're funds, just like, right, the fire department is a fund, so at the
yeah,
bottom,
but so I can tell you how that works for my department. Every quarter, they cut me a check, and that's it. That's how it.
but in an expenditure report, that's from July 1. You should know what's been spent for Parks and Rec, and it's not in that report at all.
So they don't have anything listed.
There's nothing for Parks and Rec.
I'll fully admit straight up front that I did not look at that because I was looking at.
So
I know that
They're
Sherry,
gonna spend the money anyway, once you do something.
I know that Sherry is working diligently to get the stuff together. Trying to be as thoughtful as you can without jeopardizing us, but
yeah, okay, so Parks and Rec is missing from that report, and so is youth and social services and animal control. It's actually like in excess of $100,000 that's not accounted for in that report. So I just want to make sure moving forward, she's alert to the fact that I'm sure it's like a checkbox that she just didn't check, so it didn't populate in the report.
well, I'm sure she's not complete yet either. That was just like a interim thing, I'm sure she's not completed with her reports. Bill, have you gotten all the departments for the town portion of the budget?
I've got a worksheet, a draft, and I'm gonna go over with it tomorrow, as long as you guys time. Sit down.
So she probably hasn't had every department to you yet, right?
Right.
So,
But what the document I'm referring to was an expenditure report. It's not looking ahead, it's what has been spent. So,
Year-to-date expenditure.
yeah, so in that report, there is nothing, it looks like we spent nothing on Parks and Rec. Looks like we spent nothing
Nothing on
for
what?
youth. Parks
Oh,
and
she's
Rec,
missing portions probably.
Youth and Social Services and Animal Control Fund are not, not included in that report at all. And they should be,
I'll ask her.
yeah.
So I think Christina is probably correct in that the line item wasn't checked. Because the new software is entirely different than the old one, so that was part of the problem that we were having in the beginning of the fiscal year. With the new software, was that some of the items, the line items weren't being carried forward, or however they do it, printed out. Now,
Christina, what's the date of the report you're referring,
It is titled FYTD 3-2-2023.
she ran it today,
it's the day one?
yep,
Okay, that's what I was asking.
no,
And if you go to the last page, it ends with volunteer fire ambulance, then Babcock Library, and then there should be Parks and Rec, Youth and Social Services, and Animal Control Fund.
Thank you.
Excuse me, a budget.
And are we gonna have all the different departments present like last year? Like we had
We can
the
shoot,
fire department, we had Sherry.
we asked certain ones to come in that we had questions about, but I don't, yeah.
so. Bill asked you if we could do the Board of Selectmen budget. A week from today, but not a regular meeting.
Oh,
Bill asked you
yeah,
if we could do that. Is
To
that,
do-
is that the plan, is to put him on the agenda for the ninth,
for next week,
for next week?
yeah.
Okay.
You have your meeting scheduled for next week.
No, we have a meeting.
We have a regular,
That's not on.
No.
Right, you-
You're looking at the budget schedule, not the regular meetings.
Okay. Good.
so if you put you on the regular meeting,
Yeah.
then
So all she's doing is, last week's meeting didn't happen because of the technical difficulties, so you can just slide you down. Yeah, the budget calendar is separate from the regular meeting calendar. Because I did the same thing, I looked at the budget calendar, said, oh, we're not meeting, great, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, there's two.
Didn't realize you had two calendars.
Yep, you have the regular meeting and then you have a special, budget meeting.
Easy.
Budget meeting. We could call a special one down for you if you want. You want to be special.
Did you want questions that we might have, because we haven't seen much yet from that? Or do you want to have, or you can just have him do a presentation and then we can decide what departments we want to talk to, is that?
Yeah, why don't we do it that way? Because someone, I mean, we don't have to drag like everybody in that's, you know,
Yeah, I know
Minor.
last year we asked for specific departments.
My intention before the meeting next week is to send you sort of a worksheet that I'm working off of.
Okay.
And then make a presentation to you. If there's any refinements in that, I've got recommendations I'm going to be making to my board.
So, dude, as far as right now, the current budget discussion, I don't have anything. I'm gonna go back and just take this week to think about any other questions we might have about the Board of Ed. And then whatever Bill gives us and look at that.
Okay. Yes, sir? Yeah. The other thing was to, for the money for the 1% fund. I think we'll wait on that too until we get the finale of where we're at.
So actually, that brought up a question. Hey, Bill, oh, well, Judy, can you ask Bill if Sherry can be at the meeting next year? The treasurer?
Can Sherry come to the meeting on Thursday night? We ask her.
I'll check with her, I mean, she can just be by Zoom, my intention was, when I make my presentation, have it there.
Yeah, just because then we could put that on that agenda as well, that sort of at 1% or 2% fund, or 1%. Cause she should have the data.
We'll wait until we do the school.
I did the formal request to have the 1%.
I know, we
Yeah.
saw that, but she hasn't given, well, then I haven't seen.
Well, I was gonna do it, but I wanna wait until we do the school.
Okay,
Sharon can be here next Thursday.
look at that, boom.
She can be here.
So-
She's good.
Dina's getting out the big stick. I like it.
Sharon and I have been a team for many, many years before Ashford.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so the
So
only,
that would help tremendously, actually.
So, as of right now, it looks like our Region 19 budget increase is 6.2%. Is that correct?
That's what I've seen. So 3.5 enrollment increase.
So again.
Bill,
percentage
did
means
you
nothing.
guys get
What's the
enough?
dollar
things?
amount, Christine?
Excuse me,
Are these just for down here? Did you guys get copies?
those are for you.
Do you guys all have a copy of these?
I do, but
Christina?
I have one, yeah. The dollar amount is 218,407.
What page are you on?
That's what I'm asking. To see if you guys.
Just like to see how the contract we do with them, how it fits in.
I'll say one for the road. Sure. So yeah, the reason I wanted to wait on that 1% is because. When we finally figure out where we're at with all the departments, the general fund and everything. We'll have a clearer view because we went slightly over budget on the general. Last year, so I want to see how that works out. When we have the final numbers.
And do we have the grand list yet? The new grand list total?
Yes, we have the figures.
yeah, I thought it was sent out.
It's a 0.99%
Yeah, I thought
increase. But we have the figures on that. I think I sent it. to you.
If you could forward it to me, it's a 0.99% increase over last year. It might, you know what it might have been? It might have been that you just said what the percent increase, but not the total number.
That's on February 3rd.
Does it say the total number?
There's everything.
we should have had
Grand
everything.
list of taxable property for the town of Ashford, but as of 1/31/2020.
Yeah, it's total.
That grand list value, all everything. The whole shebang.
Oh, yes, I see.
Are you good?
Good.
Okay, to the next agenda item, which everybody is just jumping for joy.
Wait, Garth isn't here, right?
I nominated you last week. 1,000 feet up there.
That's how I
You
became
were
Little League president one year, so no.
So anybody's interested in stepping up until the clerk position?
I'm gonna return the favor and nominate Mr. Copeland.
I second that.
I nominate Guard.
You just spend the second week of vote and it could be done right now.
You can fly, so.
So otherwise it goes to Bill.
But,
You're gonna have to pick somebody soon.
no. So, no,
I mean, they could-
I'm serious. I nominate John Kovac. I'm 100% serious.
All right. Are you gonna kill me if I say second it?
It's already been seconded.
Oh, okay, so we're moving here.
discussion.
I'll discuss that. I got a few words. It's not that bad. Do we want to have a discussion about it? I don't want to back in a corner.
It's too late for that.
Then we'll vote on it. Okay, so Paul, motion, Jesse, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
So the motion passes. You are the new clerk.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I'll get you your little button.
How about you, Angie? Did you hear that?
She did, she voted.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Okay, so the motion passed. Thank you, John. You want to switch? Okay, moving on. So remarks for the good of the board. I really appreciate you guys. I think that you're very thoughtful. I thought they were excellent questions. I just sat back most of it and just listened to you know, the responses. I thought the school did an awesome job responding to the questions, and I'd like to keep it very respectful. And let's get this done.
Yep.
Hopefully next week we can get the general budget and move on. So Angie.
Yep, I
Next
so moved to adjourn.
adjournment. So Angie, motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Paul, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, folks.
Night.
Matt,